A UFO was caught on live TV in Brazil, hovering in the sky for over 2 hours. A woman on a Thai talk show in 2016 claimed she was possessed by a ghost, and right in the middle of the interview, the spirit seemed to take over, screaming and freaking out when the host pulled out a Buddha necklace. In Colorado, local news anchors were totally freaked out by a creepy-looking animal caught on camera. This is live TV footage that shows something not human. So what is this thing hovering in the sky? This footage is from a live news broadcast in Rio Branco, Brazil. On February 9th, 2009, TV Gazeta showed up to capture what witnesses described as a colorful object hovering over the city. Whatever this thing was, it changed color multiple times, flashing from blue to red to white. There were more than 25 witnesses that night who watched as this thing hovered in the sky for more than 2 hours. Then it moved from east to south and afterwards south to west. Pretty strange. Certainly doesn't look like a plane or satellite to me, and not that a drone would be totally unheard of in 2009. They certainly weren't as widely used as they are now though. Till this day, we still don't know exactly what this thing was. Alright, this one's pretty ridiculous, but I do love me some possession videos. Always fun to see what weird noises these evil spirits force out of people's mouths. Back in 2016, something pretty strange happened on a Thai talk show. A model came on the show and told everyone that she had picked up a ghost while on vacation in the city of Rayong the year before. She said this ghost was a pop, a type of spirit in Thai culture. It's known for having an uncontrollable hunger. At first, she just calmly explained what had happened to her. You know, ghost got inside my body somehow. Well, and then right in the middle of the interview, the pop just had to embarrass this poor woman on live television. To be fair though, she should have seen this coming. She'd been dealing with the thing's antics for a whole year at this point. Suddenly she seems to switch, like something else is talking through her. She started speaking in a different voice and just couldn't seem to snap out of it. No matter how much the hosts pushed her to stop, they kept telling the spirit to leave her alone, but it refused, making threats like, "Don't mess with me," which probably sounds a lot cooler in Thai. Then one of the hosts pulls out a necklace with a Buddha pendant. As soon as he held it up, she freaks out, screaming and recoiling in terror. Very loudly, I might add. I had to turn down the volume almost all the way because I was worried everyone was going to hear female screams through my headphones and that I'd be kindly asked to leave the office. Eventually, the host puts the necklace on her though, and just like that, she seems to come back to her senses. The clip went viral in Thailand and racked up millions of views. Just what is it we're looking at here? Well, this aired on a local news station in Pueblo, Colorado, and the anchors were genuinely confused, as were a lot of people watching, as to what they were looking at. It's some weird looking animal with patchy black fur, a reddish face, and long skinny arms hunched over eating something off the ground. Apparently the woman who filmed the creature had actually seen it once before, but she had no idea what it was either. Other than an animal with mange, the word chupacabra was thrown around a lot. Well, later on, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials looked into it and said the animal was probably a raccoon with mange. Mange is a skin disease that can cause animals to lose most of their fur and look pretty rough. I mean, you take the cutest furry animal on earth, shave all its hair off, and it looks pretty damn freaky. This image here was shared on news stations all over the world. Nobody knew what the hell this thing was when news first broke, and nobody knows what it is now, but it's since become known as the unidentified Amarillo object. In 2022, the Amarillo Zoo in Texas got a lot of attention after they shared a strange image caught on their security cameras. The picture was taken at 1:25 a.m. by a motion detecting camera, showing a bizarre figure walking just outside the zoo fence. And what's creepy is that it's walking on 2 legs. Clearly though, this is not a person, unless they're wearing a costume, which is an odd thing to be doing at 1:30 in the morning, skulking around a zoo. When the zoo posted the image on Twitter, they leaned into the mystery, asking, is it a person with a strange hat who likes to walk at night, a chupacabra? Do you have any ideas of what this UAO, unidentified Amarillo object, could be? The zoo never outright claimed it was anything supernatural or like a cryptid or anything, but they didn't offer up any solid explanations either, because they didn't have one. Now, could this have been a weird marketing stunt? Maybe, but city officials and the zoo's director, Michael Kashuba, insisted the photo was not staged. And 3 years later, we still don't have any solid answers. On April 27, 1986, HBO viewers were watching The Falcon and the Snowman when their screens suddenly cut to black, and for about 5 minutes, a message appeared in bright white text on a color test pattern that read, "Good evening, HBO, from Captain Midnight. $12.95 a month? No way." The broadcast had been hijacked. The person behind it was John R. McDougall, a satellite engineer who was frustrated with HBO's pricing, which he felt was unfair to satellite dish owners who had to pay monthly fees for content that used to be free. McDougall later admitted that he'd used his own satellite equipment at a Florida transmission site to briefly override HBO's signal. He knew exactly how to aim his dish and transmit at just the right frequency to cut into their feed. Authorities launched an investigation, and within a few months, he was caught. He was fined and given probation, so yeah, the guy was identified, but I just had to bring this one up. The fact that this guy successfully interrupted one of the largest cable networks without immediate detection is pretty nuts. This is one of the most high-profile broadcast intrusions in US history. In 2021, Sam Hessler, a reporter for CBS 6, was doing a live morning segment from Greenbridge Cemetery in Saratoga County, New York. At the time, everything seemed perfectly normal. Nobody on set noticed anything unusual. It wasn't until later that day when a viewer contacted the station saying they'd seen something strange walking behind her during the broadcast. When the news team went back to review the footage, they spotted it too. Some sort of figure crossing the background. It almost looked like it appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The clip got passed around and people slowed it down to try and figure out what it was. In the slowed version, you can clearly see a shadowy form moving across the screen. Now, Greenridge Cemetery already has a bit of a spooky reputation. There have been stories of eerie things there over the years. You can imagine the details. Nothing super out of the ordinary for a cemetery. But to have something captured on live television like this, that hits a little different. The Reptilian conspiracy is one of the more out there theories floating around, but somehow it's got a pretty big following, partly thanks to supposed footage of it. The idea is that some of the world's most powerful people, your politicians, singers, actors, that they're not actually human, that they're instead these shape-shifting reptilian creatures wearing human skin suits as a disguise while secretly pulling the strings behind all the world's biggest decisions. What's kept this conspiracy alive for so long is what some claim to be video evidence. Over the years, live TV has supposedly caught these lizard people slipping up. There are clips of news anchors and politicians where their pupils briefly look like vertical slits instead of round human eyes. Sometimes their faces seem to glitch, momentarily revealing what looks like snake-like patches of skin underneath. Plenty of people have slowed these clips down, zoomed in, and picked apart the footage frame by frame, and then posted top 10 lists online talking about it. Well, I gotta talk about it. I know it, you know it, but that's because this is the wildest live broadcast hack in history, the Max Headroom incident, still unsolved. On November 22nd, 1987, on the evening news on WGN in Chicago, the screen suddenly cut to a man wearing a Max Headroom mask, a character from a TV show around that time. The man didn't say anything at first, he just stood there as this background behind him was spinning around, making strange movements, and you also hear a bit of a buzzing noise. The station quickly cut the feed, got back to the news. It only lasted about 20 seconds, but that wasn't the end of it. Just 2 hours later, during a broadcast of Doctor Who on the local PBS station, the same masked man took over again, and this time he started talking, mumbling phrases that made no sense, mocking TV personalities, even getting spanked with a fly swatter by someone off camera. It's a mix of emotions watching this footage. It's undoubtedly eerie, but you can't say there isn't humor in this too. The whole thing lasted about 90 seconds before the station finally managed to cut him off. The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but they never caught the person responsible. To this day, no one knows who did it or exactly how they pulled it off. Why even? Breaking into live broadcasts like this is not easy. It would have required a lot of knowledge and skill. It's considered one of the weirdest unsolved broadcast intrusions ever. In 1977, a Southern England news broadcast was hijacked by this strange voice claiming to be from the Ashtar Galactic Command. In 2015, a live Oklahoma City traffic report caught this fast-moving glowing object flying across the sky, and in 1992, a creepy BBC special caused mass panic and thousands of complaints before it was banned for over a decade. These are moments on live TV that scientists can't explain. So in 1977, during a regular news broadcast in southern England, the audio suddenly cut out. The picture went all fuzzy, and there was this buzzing noise. Then a strange metallic voice cut in, claiming to be Vrillon from the Ashtar Galactic Command. And for nearly 6 minutes it delivered this bizarre message, warning humanity to stop fighting, destroy its weapons, and prepare for a great awakening. It also told viewers that they were being watched and guided by beings from other worlds. The station was completely unaware of what was going on until people started calling in. Engineers figured out someone had hijacked the signal by targeting a specific transmitter that rebroadcast signals from another tower, basically exploiting a weak point in the system. But even still, they never found out who actually did this. Whoever it was, though, needed some serious technical skill and equipment. People have analyzed every part of this message. Some say it was just a prank, others think it was someone who genuinely wanted to put this message out there, and then there are those who actually think this message was coming from somewhere up in space. I'd love to believe that, but I don't. Back in March of 2015, Coco 5 News in Oklahoma City was running a normal early morning traffic report. Nothing exciting, just the usual aerial feed from their Grand Casino Skycam out in Shawnee. But then, out of nowhere, this glowing white object zipped across the screen at lightning speed. It was super fast, too fast to be a plane, and the movement doesn't look like a drone either. The news anchors didn't even notice it live. Viewers caught it first and started flooding the station with questions. To their credit, the news station didn't ignore it. They re-aired the footage and posted it online, asking the public to help figure out what it was. Problem is, nobody really could. It wasn't a meteor, those fall, they don't fly sideways at a steady height. It wasn't a bug on the lens either, the light shifts as it moves and you could see it behind distant clouds. It wasn't a military or commercial aircraft as far as anyone could tell, and it didn't match any scheduled flights. Despite being caught live on air and analyzed frame by frame, nobody's ever nailed down exactly what this thing was. Alright, this is an interesting one, because it's not what happened on TV that was the mysterious part, but what was going on with viewers while the broadcast was happening. So in 1992, the BBC aired a Halloween special called Ghostwatch. This was a fake documentary about a haunted house in North London. The thing is, most viewers didn't realize it was scripted. The show was presented like any other live broadcast, except the crew was investigating a poltergeist called Pipes. Viewers at home would catch glimpses of the ghostly figure of Pipes in the background of shots, and there would be weird audio glitches. On top of that, of course, the subject matter was just unsettling on its own. The atmosphere felt real. Too real, and as the broadcast went on, people started calling in to report their own paranormal experiences. Others were convinced that the show had invited an actual spirit into their homes. The BBC got tens of thousands of complaints. One girl reportedly entered a catatonic state after watching it. People were legitimately freaking out, even though the show had a brief disclaimer at the start. If you happened to tune in after it, you'd have no way of knowing that this was staged. The format fooled a lot of people, including some of the presenters who weren't even told everything that would happen. Scientists and psychologists later studied the public's reaction to the show, calling it a rare case of mass suggestion triggered by media. The show only aired once and the BBC banned it for a decade. On August 19th, 1987, a man named Gary Stolman managed to get inside NBC's Burbank studio during the 4 p.m. news. At one point during the broadcast, he walked up behind reporter David Horowitz, pulled out a firearm, and forced him to read a bizarre statement live on air.
What is this? Let me see what it says.
Now, to say Gary Stolman was possessed here is a stretch, but he was in this eerily calm state considering the circumstances. He's almost robotic. It's very odd, and to the reporter's credit, he stayed pretty calm too, way more than I would have. He just started reading the paper, which was filled with wild claims about the CIA, mind control, and mental hospitals.
In 1981, by someone with connections at the CIA.
After the manifesto was read, Stolman just casually placed the firearm on the desk. Anchor John Beard quickly grabbed it, and security took Stolman into custody. Turns out, it wasn't even a real firearm. It was an unloaded BB. Very strange incident though. During a live call-in show on an Islamic TV channel, the hosts were doing a regular Q&A session when a woman called in saying she believed people had used black magic on her, and that a jinn, which is a type of supernatural being in Islamic belief, had possessed her. She said she'd been trying to fight it off with constant prayer, but it didn't seem to be working. At first she sounds calm, clearly distressed, but calm, and then it takes a turn. She starts making these weird animalistic noises, low growling, almost inhuman, and then a bit later, she just breaks into this loud manic laughter that comes out of nowhere. It's the kind of laughter that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. Now, whether this woman was actually possessed or not, who really knows? She was definitely dealing with something though, unless she was faking the whole thing, but it doesn't really matter. The call is freaky either way. David Blaine's 2001 interview on GMTV is incredibly strange, so much so that it's kinda hard to watch, and if you were a super sheltered person who was genuinely freaked out by magicians and you tuned into this interview, you'd probably think David Blaine was possessed by some dark force that allowed him to perform his insane stunts and tricks. So Blaine came on the show to promote one of his stunts, but instead of answering questions like a normal person, he mostly just sat there silently staring. He barely blinked, barely moved.
I'm sure you're not going to tell me. Indeed.
And when he did speak, it was in this deep, monotone kind of drawl, and his answers were short. The host tried everything to break through, asked him normal stuff, asked him weirder stuff, even straight up said at one point, "Is this just part of the show?" Blaine didn't flinch, finally lifted his hand and showed an eye drawn on his palm, explaining in a flat, muffled tone, "It's protection from death."
Protection from death. Oh.
The interviewer later said it was one of the most awkward interviews of his career. Go figure. This clip is from a BBC documentary filmed in 1978, part of one of the most well-known paranormal cases ever, the Enfield Poltergeist. A reporter named Rosalind Morris visited the Hodgson family in Enfield, London, and interviewed them multiple times. This clip shows Janet Hodgson, who was just a kid at the time, speaking in this deep, harsh voice she claimed belonged to a spirit named Bill.
No. Who's there? Doctor.
The Hodgsons said it started small. They'd hear knocking sounds, furniture would move around by itself, but then things started to get out of hand. Objects started flying across the room. Janet and her sister Margaret would get yanked out of bed. Janet started speaking in that raspy voice. Eventually, famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren showed up, and they backed the family up, saying the house was haunted by a poltergeist. Alright, one of the most uncomfortable and frustrating interviews I've ever seen is this Jim Carrey one. Oof. Now again, possessed in the traditional sense, no, but was he in some kind of state? Definitely. And it's hard to watch. It's very, very weird. So during a red carpet event at New York Fashion Week in 2017, Kat Sadler from E! News was trying to, just do her job. Have a normal chat with Jim Carrey, who seemed to just be going out of his way to make things uncomfortable. "There's no meaning to any of this," he said. "I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am." Sadler tried to keep things on track, mentioning that the party was celebrating icons, and then he's like, "I don't believe in icons. I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personalities, beyond invention and disguise, beyond the red S you wear on your chest that makes bullets bullets bounce off. And to really drive the existential dread home, he finishes off with, "This world is not our world, we don't matter." Okay, it's so pretentious. It's like a teenager who just had their first philosophy class and suddenly thinks they're just so above it all. I know the truth. I see everything for what it really is. I don't know what Jim Carrey was going through at this point, but I think luckily he's become a bit more normal again, I think. I don't know. In 2012, a woman named Latoya Amons in Gary, Indiana claimed her house was infested with demons. She said her kids were getting possessed. One kid apparently levitated, another walked backwards up a hospital wall. And it wasn't just her saying these things. Multiple people, like doctors, nurses, police officers, DCS workers, claimed they saw really weird things happen. The case ended up getting so much attention that it reached the local police and the church, and that's when a priest named Father Michael Maginot performed multiple exorcisms, one of which was reportedly sanctioned by the Catholic Church itself. Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures eventually bought the house and made a whole documentary about it called Demon House. He claimed the place was so dangerous, he had to demolish it. A CNN news crew goes to film at a haunted house and ends up getting scratched and shoved. A live TV forecast in Argentina catches what looks like a ghost running across a boardwalk, and in the middle of a UK newscast, two glowing objects streak past the anchor's window. This is unexplained phenomena caught on live TV broadcasts. In 2015, a CNN reporter, Katie Kairos, and her cameraman went to a house in Hanover, Pennsylvania to film a segment about a woman named Deanna Simpson who said her home was haunted. Deanna claimed she'd been living with spirits for 7 years, and they weren't the friendly kind. She told the crew the ghosts had attacked her, her husband, and their pets, and that she'd heard voices and screaming at night. But it wasn't just what Deanna was describing that was creepy. Stuff started happening on camera. Cameraman Nick Petrillo suddenly felt something burning his hand, and when he looked down, there were these fresh scratches on his wrist. Deanna didn't seem surprised either. "It's because you're telling the story. They don't want it out there. That's their way of warning," she said, before sprinkling holy water on him. Kairos later said she also felt something touch and pinch her during the filming. The crew caught orbs on camera and watched a door slam shut after Deanna asked whatever it was there to show itself. Deanna told them she had recordings of voices like laughing children when no one else was home as well. And she said there were at least 5+ spirits living there. "Some women here that are protecting me, but the majority are bad, dark forces, inhuman," she said. During a 2023 live episode of the Argentine TV show Fenómenos, co-host Matthias Bertolotti was in the middle of giving the weekend forecast when the show switched to one of their outdoor cameras, a live feed overlooking a quiet boardwalk in Corrientes City. Everything looked totally normal until a viewer at home spotted something off. People watched as what looked like a human figure ran across the boardwalk. "Oh, a person ran along the boardwalk? Incredible story, James. Where do you find these things?" Well, there's more to it than that. Take a look. It's semi-translucent, ghostly looking. When the host replayed the footage during the broadcast, both of them were clearly shaken. Bertolotti leaned in and said, "It's a person running and then vanishing. There are no legs." He told viewers there was no editing or trick involved. The feed was live the whole time. During a live news broadcast in the UK on February 1st, 2021, viewers caught something strange happening behind the anchor that had nothing to do with the story being read. Through the large studio windows, a glowing object zipped across the sky, bright, fast, clearly visible on camera. The clip started spreading almost immediately online, of course, especially after conspiracy blogger Scott C. Waring picked it up. Waring, who runs the site UFO Sightings Daily, posted the footage claiming it showed, quote, 100% proof of UFOs over London. He said he slowed down the video and noticed something even weirder, saying what looks like one UFO is actually two. The UFOs are flying side by side. He compared their movement to US Air Force jets that take off in pairs, saying the two lights seem to move in a wingman formation. The video was filmed during a standard live broadcast, nothing edited or staged. Some viewers thought it could have been a drone or reflection, but what do you think this thing was? During a live morning broadcast in Honduras, journalist Carlos Molina experienced something really odd. While reading viewer messages alongside his co-host Pablo Zapata, he suddenly froze as his glass of water just slid across the table. He also said that seconds before this even happened, he'd felt this chill run down his spine. Carlos made it clear no one on the crew was pulling a prank. "I felt something strange in my body. The action didn't just demonstrate itself in the glass, but in me as well. What I felt was a supernatural phenomenon. on, a chill throughout my body before the glass moved, he said. The table is also flat, and apparently there were no strings or wires, and it all happened live on air.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Channel 7 interruption. This strange and eerie interruption took place in 2007 during the airing of the documentary Mayday Head-On Collision, which was airing on Australia's Channel 7. Basically, the audio in the documentary was replaced by a looped voice message of an American saying, quote, "Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord, fuck." I'd say that's a pretty terrifying message to hear when you're just tuning into a documentary. Authorities may have found a true explanation for this one, but it doesn't seem to have been released publicly. Apparently the network just brushed it off, calling it a technical glitch due to an audio problem, but a lot of the people who witnessed it aren't so convinced. After the incident, there were hundreds of concerned Australians calling into the network looking for some kind of answers as to what exactly happened here and what they had all just watched. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Steve Wilkos interruption. About a decade ago, residents of a Montana suburb who were just chillin', relaxing, and watching an episode of the Steve Wilkos show were in for a rude interruption. During the broadcast, there was suddenly an emergency crawling across the screen. It claimed that the dead had risen from their graves and they were now roaming the streets, attacking the living. Yes, we are talking about a good old zombie apocalypse. The emergency alert claimed that people shouldn't try to apprehend the undead as they were dangerous individuals. Of course, we all know now that this was a hoax and that the town's emergency broadcasting system had been hacked by some unnamed source. This, however, wasn't the only one. Soon there were emergency broadcasts happening all over towns in Michigan with a similar story. One even interrupted Barney, of all programs. 2 of the stations at the time claimed that they tracked the hack overseas, but there hasn't been much word on anything else surrounding that. In our number 3 spot today, we have UVB 76. The sound apparently began to happen in the 1980s when a radio tower just north of Moscow began transmitting a random and seemingly bizarre assortment of beeps, but in 1992 the sound began to change. In that year, it suddenly switched to a buzzing sort of sound that would last about a second, and this sound would occur somewhere between 21 and 34 times every minute. This strange routine would be interrupted once every few weeks by a male voice, which would then be reciting a string of numbers and works, mostly Russian sounding names like Anna and Nikolai. The buzzing wasn't necessarily always exactly the same, as the tone would switch and there would be different intervals between the buzzes, but one thing that was always consistent is that every hour on the hour, the station would have 2 quick consecutive buzzes. To make things stranger, in June of 2010 and also in August of that year, the station briefly stopped sending out signals despite it having been constantly for years and years. At the end of August in 2010, the station again changed and there began to be different shuffling sounds and thuds that could be heard in the background, and often little snippets of the dance of the little swans from Swan Lake would also interrupt the broadcast. While we obviously know that these sounds are coming from a radio broadcast and we can make out some of the sounds we're hearing, we have absolutely no idea what purpose they serve, where they are coming from, or what they mean. Right now, the best guess is that these are secret messages that are being transmitted to secret agents, and if that's the case, it's likely that we'll never know exactly what is being discussed in these broadcasts. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Max Headroom guy, probably the most famous broadcast interruption ever. On November 22nd, 1987, a man wearing a Max Headroom mask hijacked 2 separate television broadcasts in Chicago, Illinois. The man was basically speaking nonsense and moaning and screaming throughout, and the audio was extremely distorted. He interrupted the sports segment on the 9 o'clock news for about 25 seconds, and then a few hours later he interrupted a broadcast of Doctor Who for about 90 seconds. The whole thing was very weird, and the second interruption featured some fairly inappropriate behavior, such as the moment when he partially exposed his butt and an unidentified woman came into the shot and began smacking his butt with a fly swatter. I'm unsure why someone would hijack a television broadcast for absolute nonsense, but I guess maybe he was just trying to have a good time. While the charges for this incident could have left the man with jail time and a $100,000 fine, no one has been able to figure out who this man was or even the woman who helped him are. I wonder if we'll ever get answers because I have so many questions. This would be such a good deathbed confession. I'm just saying, if you're out there watching this, please. In our number 1 spot today, we have the government spy. For this one, we are taking a bit of a turn and talking about someone who used secret signals and transmissions in order to spy on the US for Cuba, and no, they did not stay anonymous, of course. Ana Montez is a former American senior analyst at the Defense Intelligence Agency, and for 17 years she used encrypted messages to receive information and communicate with the Cuban government in order to spy on the United States. In the charging documents, American federal prosecutors said, quote, Montez communicated with the Cuban intelligence service through encrypted messages and received her instructions through shortwave encrypted transmissions from Cuba. In addition, Montez communicated by coded numeric pager messages with the Cuban intelligence service by public telephones located in the District of Columbia and Maryland. The codes included "I received message" or "danger." Ana was arrested by the FBI at her office on September 21st, 2001, and part of the reason why is because she apparently had classified information on the US military's pending invasion of Afghanistan, and people were worried that she might go on to further reveal this information. While Ana pleaded guilty to her crimes, which could have even carried a death sentence, she received 25 years, and her tentative release date is actually January 8th, 2023. Ever had that eerie feeling something is off with reality? Like a scene from The Matrix. Sometimes the real world seems to stutter or glitch, and it's all caught on live TV. From news anchors freezing mid-sentence to ghostly figures strolling through stadiums, these bizarre televised moments have left viewers wondering if we're all characters in some cosmic video game. Strap in, because today we're counting down real-life live TV glitches that are so freaky and unexplained they might just convince you we're living in a simulation. Imagine watching a live news report and suddenly the reporter's words turn into total gibberish. That's exactly what happened during a CBS Los Angeles broadcast from the 2011 Grammy Awards. Viewers were stunned when reporter Serene Branson went from speaking normally to uttering a string of nonsensical sounds on live TV.
Well, a very, very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison.
She visibly panicked as she realized something was wrong, leading many to fear that she was having a stroke on air. Paramedics rushed to examine her, and thankfully, her vital signs were normal. It turned out Serene had suffered a complex migraine that mimicked stroke-like symptoms, causing sudden aphasia or speech impairment. In other words, her brain glitched, scrambling her speech. The clip went viral as a real-life Matrix moment, a healthy young reporter seemingly malfunctioning without warning. It was a scary sight, but also a relief when we learned it wasn't a true stroke. Still, for a few seconds of live TV, it felt like reality itself had briefly broken down. A famous weatherman suddenly freezes like an NPC caught in lag. On the Today Show in 2012, co-hosts Savannah Guthrie and Matt Lauer finished a silly dance joking about leaving room for the Holy Ghost between dance partners. That's when Al Roker, the beloved NBC weatherman, did the unthinkable. He stared directly into the camera, motionless with a goofy grin for a full 17 seconds. He didn't blink, didn't move a muscle. It was as if someone hit the pause button on Al Roker. Roker later explained that it was a bit of deadpan humor, essentially a brain freeze challenge he did on purpose. The show's director egged him on to see how long he could hold the pose, and Al committed to the bit. Even so, watching it back, many viewers felt a chill. The moment looked so uncanny that it's now a classic glitch in the Matrix clip. During a live soccer match, a shadow person sprinted through the stands, and no one can agree if it was a glitch, a ghost, or just a camera trick. This incident happened at a stadium in La Paz, Bolivia, during a Fox Sports broadcast in 2014. In the footage, you see a dark, human-shaped figure running rapidly across the lower tier seats straight through the crowd, yet no one in the audience seems to react to it. Viewers at home were creeped out. Was it a ghost caught on live TV? Rational explanations soon emerged. Lighting snafu or video artifact, basically a technical glitch that made a real person's image smear across the screen. But that hasn't stopped wild theories. The clip went viral, with some saying the stadium is haunted or that we witnessed a Matrix running program acting up. What's freakier than one person glitching? How about two people glitching together? Twin sisters Paula and Bridget Powers from Australia gave an interview that left viewers' jaws on the floor. They were recounting a dramatic carjacking incident involving their mother, but it wasn't the story that stole the show, it was how they told it. The twins spoke in a mesmerizing stereo, often saying the exact same words at the exact same time during the live interview.
So we drop everything and we went running out the front. We seen Mum running out from the house up there.
At times, one twin would start a sentence and the other would finish it in perfect sync, as if they shared one mind. The effect was so uncanny that the clip went viral worldwide, and even Jimmy Kimmel invited them on his show out of sheer fascination. The sisters themselves just laughed it off, saying their brains think alike at the same time after a lifetime together. Indeed, Paula and Bridget have spent 51 years dressing alike, working together, and practically living in parallel. So while it seems paranormal, it's likely just an extraordinary sibling bond. Viewers thought they spotted a shape-shifting reptilian on the news, but the truth was more technological. In an old CTV news clip that resurfaced online, a female reporter delivers the headlines when suddenly her eyes appear to glitch. During a blink, her eyes don't look human for a split second, they seem fixed and glazed over, almost like a doll's, or a computer-rendered image. Experts explained that it was a rolling screen repaint artifact from the broadcast. Basically, this was an analog TV signal glitch. On old antenna TV, if the signal degrades at the wrong moment, in this case when she blinked, part of the previous frame's data can briefly hold on for a second. The result? Her eyes open from a prior frame overlaid on her face while blinking, creating a creepy illusion that her eyes blinked but didn't close? Technical or not, it looked really freaky, like an NPC in a video game failing to load its textures. Even after hearing the explanation, some joked, "Sure, that's what they want you to believe."
Back in 2014, ABC 7 covered a story about a strange creature captured by a couple in South Texas. Jackie Stocks told the news crew that her husband spotted a weird creature in the yard eating corn. The husband said he'd hunted raccoons and said he'd never heard one growl like this before.
Parma says one of the big signs it's not a raccoon is its growl.
Now, they also interviewed an apparent wildlife expert who looked at footage of the strange animal and said it was probably a canine with mange. Thing is, canines do not use their hands the way this thing does. I mean, have you ever seen your dog eat like this? I didn't think so. Wildlife expert? Maybe go get a new career? I don't know. This footage was shown on One Indian News a few years ago. In Jarkend, a group of bikers were riding along late at night when they saw this person walking along the side of the road. The video is pretty grainy, but you can still make out the figure. It looks pale, extremely thin, and moves in this weird, unnatural way. It doesn't seem to move its arms. It's like that character in Seinfeld that doesn't move when they walk. When it turns its head, it also seems to have these glowing yellowish eyes. So people online started commenting that this thing looked a lot like an alien. Of course, no one knows for sure what the bikers caught on camera, but whatever it is, I would be very uncomfortable seeing it anywhere at any time, let alone a rural road in the middle of the night. Back in 2019, 9 News Australia ran a story about a pub called the Tyler's Kiln. The pub is owned by a man named Alistair Collins, who's pretty convinced that the place is haunted. Collins had a whole collection of late-night security footage showing some really odd stuff happening after hours. Chairs are seen sliding out from tables all by themselves. Umbrellas suddenly pop open with no one around, and doors slam shut even though the place is completely empty. One of the news anchors even tried to recreate the chair moving like it did in the footage, but he couldn't really pull it off. The ground is just too uneven to smoothly drag the chair like that, and setting up a string or some trick would have been pretty tough without it showing up on camera. They also tested how the umbrella could have opened on its own and figured it would have been nearly impossible to pull off without someone being caught in the frame. The creepiest story probably came from an electrician who was working there during some renovations. He heard small doors swinging near the kitchen and loud footsteps heading upstairs. He thought the only other person in the building had, of course, gone upstairs, but when he called out, said person came walking out of the kitchen right in front of him. So what was going on up there? Well, they went upstairs to check, and no one was there. The whole top floor was completely empty. I love stories like that. This next piece of footage still gets shared around online from time to time. Back in 2016, something strange happened during a Sky Sports broadcast. After a game, pundits Jamie Carragher and Phil Neville were chatting about the match, as sports commentators do, but eagle-eyed viewers at home noticed something weird in the background. There was a shadowy figure moving across the empty field. At first, it just looked like a regular groundskeeper doing cleanup, pushing equipment across the grass, but then the dude just vanishes. Viewers immediately jumped online to talk about what they saw. One person wrote, "Did anyone else notice the ghost groundsman?" Another said, "Monday Night Football, keep an eye out. There's an effing ghost groundsman in the Northeast." And someone else joked, "Ghost groundsman at the Stadium of Light. The ground needs an exorcism." No one from Sky Sports or the stadium ever confirmed what it actually was, and the pundits never addressed it. A Las Vegas man calling himself Prophet Yahweh claimed that he could summon UFOs on demand. And in 2005, a local news crew filmed two bright spherical objects appearing in the sky right after he prayed. In 2009, BBC viewers watched live as a strange white light zipped across the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle. And in 2013, hackers hijacked the emergency alert system across several US states, broadcasting a warning that zombies were rising from their graves. These are more moments in live TV that scientists can't explain. In 2005, ABC 13 Action News in Las Vegas covered a man named Ramon Watkins, who referred to himself as Prophet Yahweh. He claimed that he could summon UFOs just by praying, and said he would prove it live on camera. Well, ABC sent a reporter, Mike Dello Stritto, and a cameraman to meet him near Lake Mead. The prophet prayed, and within moments, something strange appeared in the sky. It was two bright spherical objects, hovering and slowly moving in the distance. The cameraman caught them clearly on video as they floated across the sky. The footage aired live, and people who were watching could see it happen in real time. This wasn't a quick flash or something easily dismissed. It stayed visible long enough for everyone to focus on it. Prophet Yahweh said he heard a voice in his head telling him when the UFOs would appear and where to look. But was this really the case? I mean, that is obviously very hard to believe. Could the objects have been balloons, drones, aircraft? Maybe, but they didn't seem to move like any of those things. The ABC crew didn't offer an explanation, and the event still gets passed around online with no solid answer for what actually showed up in the sky that day. On August 5th, 2009, during a live morning news broadcast on BBC Northeast, anchor Colin Briggs was delivering the day's stories when something strange appeared on the screen behind him. It was this wide shot of the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, coming from the BBC's live webcam feed. Suddenly, this white streak of light zips across the frame, not falling downward, but shooting further into the sky before disappearing. The object was fast moving, but clear enough that viewers noticed, and people started recording it from their televisions and quickly shared the clips online. Some said it was a bird, a toy plane, but it doesn't really look like either of those things to me, and it didn't to Nick Pope, who is a former UK Ministry of Defence UFO investigator. He reviewed the slowdown footage and said it didn't look like a bird and that the movement was genuinely strange. The BBC later did a follow-up asking for viewer opinions, but never provided a final answer or any definitive explanation for what happened. On February 11th, 2013, during an afternoon broadcast on KRTV in Great Falls, Montana, during an episode of the Steve Wilkos Show, the emergency alert system suddenly cut in. Thank God, everyone said. Why was I watching the Steve Wilkos Show? Suddenly, though, viewers heard this voice calmly announce that the, quote, bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living.
Civil authorities in your area have reported that the bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living.
The message warned people not to approach these zombies and to wait for further instructions. It sounded pretty official. and used the same tones and format as real emergency alerts. Within hours, similar hoax messages interrupted TV stations in Michigan, Wisconsin, and New Mexico. Even more strange, 2 days later, a radio station in La Crosse, Wisconsin played a recording of the hoax alert and accidentally triggered the EAS again, rebroadcasting the zombie warning to viewers who thought it was happening all over again. Investigators later confirmed that hackers had exploited a weak security on the emergency broadcast equipment, in many cases using default passwords that were still active. Hackers were eventually caught, but as for how exactly they did this, that's never been disclosed, probably for obvious reasons. On January 3rd, 2007, people in Australia were watching Mayday Head-On Collision, a documentary about air travel disasters, when something very weird happened. In the middle of the broadcast on Channel 7, the original audio suddenly cut out and was replaced with a looping clip from an old news story about a Halliburton convoy ambush.
Lord, Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord. Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord.
The audio was just a truck driver named Preston Wheeler screaming, "Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord," over and over. The audio kept repeating that same line for 5 solid minutes while the visuals from the documentary kept playing. Nobody knew how this happened. One viewer said he kept calling the station while it was happening, but no one answered the phones. There was no follow-up, no investigation. Channel 7 just brushed it off and moved on. This one is very eerie though. On October 2nd, 2014, Colette Provencher was delivering a live weather report on TVA News from the rooftop of the network's building in Montreal. As she talked, a bright green orb floated across the sky behind her. She didn't notice anything at the time, but viewers definitely did. The footage spread online and people started arguing about what the glowing object actually was. Some said it was just a meteor. Others pointed out that the object looked way too big and wasn't moving like a typical shooting star. It also seemed to slow down mid-flight, which doesn't make sense for a meteor. The orb stayed visible for several seconds and didn't burn out like you'd expect. What are we looking at here? Good question. This clip was posted to Reddit by user Steve90,000, who wrote that on December 13th, 2024 at 5 p.m., ABC News caught an orb on video when in New Jersey investigating the drone situation. At the time, tons of people were spotting UAPs over the state. So what you're looking at here is just one of them. As for what it actually was, we still don't know. In November of 2024, a local New York TV station was doing live helicopter coverage of traffic over the Hudson River. Same old stuff, until this strange glowing orb floats into the frame, hovering, changing color, then darting out of view. It starts out white and then turns blue and kind of semi-translucent before flying off. The anchor didn't react at the moment, but when the clip was shared online, people started talking about it. Some blamed lens flares, some guessed maybe it was a drone, others said a weather balloon, but the object didn't behave like any of those. It hovered, it changed color, then accelerated. Not even the FAA had an answer. What you're seeing here is news coverage in Laos of a mysterious phenomenon known as the Naga fireballs. Every year in late October, crowds gather along the Mekong River in Thailand to watch red balls of light float up from the water and then vanish into the night sky. They're called Naga fireballs, and locals say they're caused by a giant serpent spirit that lives in the river. The orbs don't make any noise, they come out of nowhere and they rise fast, sometimes hundreds in one night. There's been a lot of debate about what's really going on here. A Thai documentary once claimed it was just tracer rounds being fired by soldiers across the river in Laos. Others have blamed flare guns or some kind of flammable gas bubbling up from the riverbed, like methane or phosphine, but none of those explanations totally hold up. The balls don't behave like flares, and scientists pointed out that the conditions needed for gas bubbles to ignite like that don't really line up. In 2021, during a strict curfew, officials made sure there were no people out with flares, and the fireballs still showed up. This footage was taken in downtown Milwaukee in 2018 during a live broadcast. The news anchors had no idea what they were looking at. Fireworks? Aliens? They joked. It's very strange. This doesn't even look like your typical UAP footage. These things aren't moving in any sort of recognizable pattern. They're just floating in every which direction. They almost look like ghosts zipping through the air than any artificial object. And there are so many of them. It's really cool, but if I saw this in person, I'd be pretty unsettled. What do you all think of this one? If someone could enlighten me as to what this could be, please share your thoughts down below. This next one comes from a 2017 episode of the British talk show This Morning, featuring a couple and their possessed doll. The chair it sat on started to rock on its own several times throughout the interview.
That chair is beginning to rock.
Rocking.
Look at that.
Who's doing that? Stop it.
The owner said that she and her husband had been walking by an antique store when they spotted a few old-looking dolls. The couple decided to buy a few of them because they were cheap and figured they might be able to flip them for more. Well, as soon as the dolls came home with them, strange things started to happen. They had one doll, the one they brought to the TV studio, sitting on the dresser in their room. Well, one morning the husband got up, hopped in the shower, and then suddenly felt this burning sensation on his leg.
And I looked down and there was a lot of scratches all over my knee.
They put the doll in their shed inside a plastic bin. Well, a couple days later, the wife went in and opened the bin, only to find that somehow the doll's necklace had been removed, even though it had been wrapped up tightly on the doll initially. And that night she woke up at 2 a.m. hearing this whooshing noise moving past the bed, almost like the rustling of clothing, or more specifically, a dress. There was nothing there. They ended up selling the doll. Did Pope Francis vanish into thin air on live TV? This was filmed back in April of 2020. The Pope showed up at the window above St. Peter's Square to bless people affected by the pandemic. Then he turned around and walked back inside, only before he was out of camera range, he suddenly just vanishes. You don't see him slowly disappear into the shadows. He's just there 1 second, then he's not. It's pretty bizarre. It's hard to find the original news segment online too, because it was taken down for some reason. In 2010, a Jamaican news station covered a story about a boy who claimed that he was being haunted by a duppy, basically a ghost. And the news team captured two strange incidents on camera. First, the boy is sitting in a chair talking about the strange experiences when all of a sudden he flies backward, as if something is pulling him. Then later in the segment, the boy claims to see the spirit standing close by watching him, and then he gets pulled again. At least that's what it looks like. Now, notice how one of his legs is in the air as he continues to move backward. And then when his mom grabs him, his legs flip around like they're being grabbed at by someone, only we can't actually see anyone. It could be faked, but it is a damn good performance by this kid, if it is. Alright, so at first glance, this just looks like some streaker running around a soccer field. If you're watching casually, you might even laugh it off, but the longer you watch, the weirder this footage is. This figure shows up from multiple camera angles, dashing through the crowd and along the edge of the field, and nobody reacts, at all. No one turns their head, no one flinches, it's like they don't even see it. Then you notice this thing doesn't look fully solid, it's kind of see-through. There's a moment where it looks like it passes right through a group of people. Plus, this person actually ends up on the field, and if you know anything about stadium security, you know the second someone who's not meant to be there steps foot on the grass, they're getting tackled and dragged off. But here, nothing happens. A Thai model claims she's possessed by a flesh-eating spirit. NBC broadcasts the first ever on-air exorcism, and a UK man says a demon lives in his foot. Channel 4 airs his exorcism live. These are times people acted possessed on live TV. Back in 2016, a Thai model named Thipawan, who also goes by Pui, went on a morning talk show and claimed she'd been possessed by a spirit for over a year. She said it was a pop, which in Thai folklore is basically a ghost that feeds on human organs. As you can imagine, this makes for an awkward guest. At first she was pretty calm, just explaining how she picked up the spirit while on a trip to Rayong, but halfway through the interview, something changes. her voice, her mannerisms. She starts talking like she's not the one in control anymore, and the hosts quickly realize that something's wrong. The pop has taken over. They start trying to reason with the spirit, telling it to stop threatening people. Then one of the hosts pulls out a Buddha pendant. As soon as he holds it up, Pui completely loses it. She screams, flails, and recoils like someone threw acid at her. They end up putting the pendant around her neck, and then it just stops, like nothing happened. Shame she didn't think to do that before spending the year with an angry demon in her body. The whole thing went viral in Thailand. It's definitely one of the wildest things ever broadcast on Thai TV. That I know of. I don't watch Thai TV. In 1971, NBC aired something that had never really been done before on TV, an exorcism. Most audiences back then didn't even know what an exorcism was. I mean, sure, exorcisms had been around for a very long time, but they hadn't seeped into pop culture the way they have now. This was still 2 years before The Exorcist even came out, so to say audiences were shocked by this would be an understatement. The 6-minute segment documented the experiences of Edwin and Marcia Becker, a couple living in Chicago who claimed their home was haunted. Reporter Carol Simpson led the piece, which opened with an interview where the Beckers described unexplained activity in the house.
Cabinet doors were closing, doors were opening, doors were closing.
This past week, they said they were awakened by the sound of a woman crying. It came from the dining room, but there was no one in the house but themselves.
I hated to think of what it was, Edwin went on to say during the interview. After the Catholic Church declined to help them, the Beckers contacted the Independent Spiritualist Church in Chicago. The exorcism was performed by Reverend William Darrell Davis and Joseph DeLuise, a medium. Everyone in the house, including the news crew, was asked to wear crucifixes for protection. At one point, Reverend DeLuise entered a trance and claimed to channel the voice of a spirit, an old woman who spoke through him, saying something about a lock combination.
Remember, the combination. Why did it concern you? It's important to me. Why do you stay here?
During the ritual, a strong gust of wind blew through the room, shaking the blinds, although that apparently happened off camera. The team also used a mirror, offered communion to the spirit, and spread blessed salt throughout the house. The broadcast ended with Simpson stating that the house had been quiet for several days since. In 2005, Channel 4 in the UK aired a show called The Exorcism, where they attempted a real exorcism on live television. A lot of viewers found it highly disturbing. The subject was a man named Colin, though, who claimed he was possessed by something that lived in his right foot. Apparently, this demonic foot spirit caused him to drive dangerously fast without being able to stop himself. That sounds like one of the worst excuses in court, but anyway, he tried everything else apparently, so Channel 4 decided to televise the exorcism to see if it would help. The network made a big deal out of this, calling it a scientific experiment and even bringing in psychiatrists and, of course, church officials to answer phones afterward in case viewers got freaked out. And they did. Over 4,000 people called in after the broadcast. It ended up being one of Channel 4's most called about shows. During the actual exorcism, Colin didn't exactly start levitating or vomiting pea soup, but he did look tense and disturbed. And then after a bunch of prayers, he suddenly said, "That was the most relaxed deliverance I've ever had." So take from that what you will. If anyone has more information on this airing though, like if you actually saw it live, please share your thoughts down in the comments. Back in the early 90s, ABC's 2020 aired a segment that freaked a lot of people out as well. It featured a teenage girl named Gina being exorcised by a group of Pentecostal ministers. It was filmed and broadcast nationwide in 1991 for millions to see. The footage is pretty distressing. Gina was clearly not in a good way, eyes rolling, voice growling, body convulsing. She screams, jerks violently, and starts shouting things in this deep, raspy voice. According to the ministers, she was possessed by several entities, two of which were named Zion and Minga. Ministers surrounded her, prayed, and yelled for the entities to come out. Eventually, everything settles down and the demons are supposedly exorcised. Whether you believe in this or not, the footage is kinda disturbing. From what I can tell, this was not a staged segment. Even if it was just emotional overload or religious hysteria, it's sad watching a young girl go through something like this, all in front of cameras too. There's never been an update on Gina either. She ended up in psychiatric care soon after this segment aired. As for what she's up to now, if she's okay, we don't know. During a live feed from the International Space Station on January 5th, 2020, viewers watching NASA's stream noticed something strange drifting across the blackness of space. The camera showed what looked like a glowing object, faint but clearly moving during a broadcast that was supposed to be all about a scheduled spacewalk by astronauts Jessica Meir and Christina Koch. The clip was later shared on the YouTube channel Spacelink TV, and it shows a light gliding upward in the distance before slowly fading out of view. Researcher Thomas Mike Jensen was the first one to analyze it. At first he thought it might just be a lens reflection or a sun flare, but after studying the movement frame by frame, Jensen wasn't so sure. It was moving slowly, and it is far from the Earth. You can see it moving out of the picture, he said, pointing out that reflections don't usually pulsate or travel like that either. The light looked like it was moving independently. It didn't look like glare. No one ever confirmed what it actually was, and NASA never issued a statement about it. This one always gives me the shivers. During the live coverage of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral on September 19, 2022, something really freaky was heard over the air. As the camera followed the hearse moving through London, viewers suddenly heard this.
That death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
As you can see,
a faint female voice whispers something, and then the broadcast immediately cuts back to the regular commentary. At the time, people weren't sure what they heard. Most people probably didn't even notice anything at first. But when someone posted the clip online, commenters determined that the voice said the death is irreversible and the fact that she's trapped. Did someone's microphone get picked up by mistake? Very likely, but that statement is just so chilling, isn't it? That death is irreversible and the fact that she's trapped? Not exactly comforting words to hear during a funeral. On November 26, 1977, viewers in southern England got way more than their usual Saturday evening programming. While ITN's Andrew Gardner was reading the news about clashes in Rhodesia, the broadcast suddenly went dead and was replaced by a deep buzzing sound, and then a voice started speaking. The voice claimed to be Vrillon, representing the Ashtar Galactic Command. For nearly 6 minutes it spoke. This is the voice of Vrillon, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights in the skies. We come to warn you of the destiny of your race and your world. It went on to urge humans to remove their weapons, live in peace, and prepare for a great awakening as the planet entered the new age of Aquarius. At one point it warned there are many false prophets and guides at present operating on your world. They will suck your energy from you. Your inner divine self will protect you. And after 6 minutes, everything just went back to normal again. Investigators later found the hijack came through the Hannington transmitter, which rebroadcast an off-air signal from a nearby unauthorized transmitter. Apparently, someone with some serious skill had managed to override the signal. So even though this was a technical error, there were and still are a good number of people who actually do believe this message came from somewhere else. On August 5th, 2009, viewers tuning in to BBC North East's morning news saw something odd happening live on air. Anchor Colin Briggs was calmly reading the day's headlines, and behind him was a live webcam shot of the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle. Well, suddenly this bright white streak shot across the sky in the background. It wasn't falling down like a meteor would, it zipped upward, then vanished completely. Some started filming their TVs and uploading the clips to YouTube, convinced they'd just seen a UFO on live news. Others said it had to be a bird, maybe a toy plane, but the way it moved didn't really match either. Even Nick Pope, who used to investigate UFO reports from the UK Ministry of Defence, said the footage didn't look like a bird and that the movement was, quote, genuinely strange. The BBC later did a short follow-up asking viewers what they thought, but they never gave any real explanation. All these years later, nobody's managed to figure out exactly what flashed across the sky that morning. In 1971, NBC aired a segment that really shocked viewers, a real-life exorcism. At the time, most people didn't even know what an exorcism was. The 6-minute piece followed Edwin and Marcia Becker, a Chicago couple who claimed their house was haunted. Reporter Carol Simpson introduced the story, letting the Beckers describe the strange things happening at home. After the Catholic Church declined to get involved, the couple turned to the Independent Spiritualist Church in Chicago. The exorcism was led by Reverend William Darrell Davis and medium Joseph DeLuise. Everyone in the house, including the news crew, had to wear crucifixes for protection. At one point, DeLuise went into a trance and claimed to channel the voice of a spirit, an old woman speaking through him. While the ritual went on, a strong gust of wind shook the blinds. The team also used a mirror, offered communion to the spirit, and spread blessed salt around the rooms. The broadcast wrapped up with Simpson saying that the house had been quiet for several days since the exorcism, leaving viewers with this unsettling glimpse into a real haunting happening live on television. What is this thing hovering in the sky? This clip comes from a live news broadcast in Rio Branco, Brazil, back on February 9th, 2009. TV Gazeta had gone out to film after locals started reporting this weird, colorful object floating above the city. Camera caught it clearly, this glowing shape just hanging there, shifting colors from blue to red to white. More than 25 people saw it that night. Witnesses said it stayed up there for around 2 hours, barely moving before slowly drifting across the sky from east to south, then south to west. It didn't look like a plane, and it definitely wasn't acting like one. Drones existed back then, but in 2009 they weren't something you'd normally see flying over a city. Whatever this thing was, nobody ever managed to explain it.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Anonymous. To start this list off today, we of course have to talk about the infamous hacking group known as Anonymous. Earlier this year, news was released that suggested that this group had hacked into different Russian-owned streaming services in order to interrupt their broadcast with their own message. It is said that they began playing footage of the ongoing war before cutting to a poem written by the Ukrainian singer Monotik. It is hard to know exactly how many programs were hijacked in this sort of situation, but according to a tweet sent out by the hacking group, they said that their hack targeted quote-unquote all of Russia's state-owned channels, and that this interruption was seen on all of them. In our number 9 spot today, we have the BBC. So for this one, we have to be on the same page on what a numbers station is. Basically, they are shortwave radio stations, and the transmissions or broadcasts are usually certain numbers or other repetitive things which are believed to be aimed to address intelligence officers who are operating in foreign countries. So for this story, we're taking it back to 1983 when the BBC, yes, the British Broadcasting Corporation, received a letter from a listener they had in Andorra. This listener had written into the World Service Waveguide program to complain that during her attempt at listening, she was interrupted by a female voice that was reading out numbers in English, and she wanted to know what this interference was. While the corporation gave a regular, non-sinister answer to the confused woman, after more research was done into the case, people aren't quite convinced. Many people who know much more about these things and recognize the patterns seen in numbers stations are fairly certain that this interruption was a numbers station that was being broadcast on a random frequency that just happened to intercept with this woman's BBC program. In our number 8 spot today, we have Southern Television. Back in November of 1977, residents of England who were watching the Southern Television broadcast were in for quite an eerie interruption. One peculiar evening, the night's news got interrupted and warped before the newscaster's voice was replaced by one that claimed to represent, quote, Ashtar Galactic Command. This voice explained that it was sending a message down to humanity, and the main point of the message was to tell humans to put down their weapons. This went on for about 6 minutes, and they claimed that our planet was in a new age, the age of Aquarius. Whoever this interruption came from must have just watched Hair or something. This new age, however, it was said that it could only be realized if, quote, rulers are made aware of the evil forces that can overshadow their judgments. The voice continued and finished off with, quote, may you be blessed by the supreme love and truth of the cosmos, and then the interruption was done. While this sure was a strange moment in time, viewers still have no idea who was responsible for this broadcast interruption. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Duga radar. So for this one, we are talking about a huge missile defense radio structure called Duga 3. This structure is suspected of having been wildly over budget, and it was the source of many complaints after it was built. The systems were extremely powerful and broadcast in shortwave radio bands. They would appear without warning, and it sounded like a sharp, repetitive tapping noise, and they would disrupt things like legitimate broadcasts, amateur radio, commercial aviation communications, and utility transmissions, which all led to there being international complaints. And at the time, people didn't know what it was. This led people to think that this signal was actually being used for things like Soviet mind control or weather control experiments. In our number 6 spot today, we have Captain Midnight. On April 27th, 1986, a man named John McDougall, who was an electrical engineer and businessman, decided to jam the HBO satellite signal on Galaxy 1 during the broadcast of the film The Falcon and the Snowman. Of course, we now know who was responsible for the interruption, but at the time, John was anonymous, going by the pseudonym Captain Midnight. The 4.5-minute long interruption was essentially just Captain Midnight venting about the price and rates for HBO's Chicago's satellite dish owners. He wanted to protest because he thought that it was too expensive. After his broadcast interruption, the FCC and FBI began investigating the incident. There was a tourist who gave a tip to the authorities after having overheard Captain Midnight using a payphone off of Interstate 75, and on this call, he was discussing the incident. There was a plea bargain that saw John receiving a $5,000 fine, 1 year unsupervised probation, and a 1-year suspension of his amateur radio license, but it also changed a lot when it came to laws around this sort of crime. The United States Congress passed the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, which made satellite hijacking a felony, and the automatic transmitter identification system was also developed in response to this incident. This one isn't a glitch in the video, it's a glitch in the broadcast itself, and it's straight up like something out of a techno thriller. In November 1987, Chicago sportscaster Dan Roan was doing the nightly news when suddenly the signal hijacked. TV screens went black for a second, and then viewers were suddenly staring at a bizarre figure. Someone in a Max Headroom mask bobbing around in front of a swiveling metal background. No sound, just 30 seconds of this super creepy masked intruder. Engineers managed to regain control on that channel, but it wasn't over. About 2 hours later, during a Doctor Who episode on another station, Max Headroom hacker struck again, this time with audio. The masked person spoke in distorted garbles, laughed, moaned, even exposed their bare behind to the camera while being spanked with a fly swatter. Yeah, it was really weird. After about 90 seconds, the pirate broadcast ended. Viewers and station officials were completely baffled. Who was that? How did they break into major TV station signals? The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but to this day, the culprits have still never been caught or identified. Even decades later, watching the Max Headroom incident on YouTube will give you a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. Somebody has the chance to have the best deathbed confession of all time. Imagine your grandfather, you're saying your final goodbyes, and he's like, I was Max Headroom. That would be crazy. When a news crew went looking for ghost stories, they might have gotten more than they bargained for. In 2021, WNYT News Channel 13 in upstate New York did a live report from the Green Ridge Cemetery as part of a Halloween segment. Reporter Sam Hessler was on air in the pre-dawn hours, walking among the tombstones while a guide shared spooky historical tales. The broadcast went smoothly until viewers at home noticed something on their screens that even the crew on site missed. In the background, behind Sam, a misty white figure seemed to drift between the graves. It was brief and subtle, a flicker of what looked like a person or a fog moving fast. After the live shot, one astonished viewer alerted the station, and Sam herself was stunned reviewing the footage. She hadn't seen anything in person. WNYT later acknowledged the eerie moment, assuring folks the clip was unedited and truly aired live. The internet, of course, lit up with ghost caught on live TV posts and theories. Some paranormal enthusiasts called it one of the best accidental ghost sightings on a news broadcast, evidence of a spirit roaming the cemetery. Skeptics countered that it could have been a camera glitch, a passing car's headlights reflecting, or even a stray piece of insect or dust close to the lens creating a blur. The station's own write-up teased it as something almost too crazy to be real and encouraged viewers to watch and decide for themselves. You're watching HGTV and suddenly an emergency alert pops up warning that the end of the world is here. What do? That nightmare scenario actually happened to some TV viewers in Southern California in September 2017. Without warning, regular programming was interrupted by the emergency alert system. The typical alert banner scrolled, but then things got truly terrifying. A booming male voice came on and proclaimed, "Realize this, that in the last days extremely violent times will come." Imagine hearing that out of the blue on a Thursday morning and you're just trying to love it or list it. Understandably, people freaked out. It sounded like a prophecy of an imminent apocalypse or some wartime broadcast. As dramatic as it was, this turned out not to be the work of pranksters or an alien overlord, but simply a technical glitch and incredibly bad timing, during a routine test of the emergency alert system. In short, the system glitched out and aired a fire and brimstone sermon by mistake. Cox and Spectrum cable customers heard what sounded like a doomsday warning, but it was just Pastor Chuck Swindoll quoting the Bible, 2 Timothy 3:1, on an FM station. Both the cable company and the FCC confirmed it was an error, not a hack, but not before scaring the heck out of viewers. In the middle of a live US Congress debate, viewers suddenly saw something Russian. In January 2017, politics junkies watching a C-SPAN online feed got a strange surprise. The feed, which was showing a live House of Representatives session, abruptly switched to Russia Today, the Kremlin-funded news channel, for about 10 minutes. Given that this occurred amid intense news about Russian cyber interference, many thought C-SPAN had been hacked by Russians in real time. C-SPAN quickly investigated and put out a statement. They didn't believe it was a hack, but rather a routing technical error. The leading theory is that some glitch caused the RT feed to literally overlap and replace the C-SPAN feed on their site. In simulation terms, it's like two different programs momentarily cross-wired. The timing, however, was almost comical. It happened just hours after a power outage oddly halted a Senate hearing about Russian hacking. Even Waters, whose speech was interrupted, remarked on the curious timing and demanded a clear explanation. Seeing Moscow news pop up in a US government broadcast felt like a scene from a spy movie, or a reminder that the simulation has a twisted sense of humor. Our final glitch was literally one word caught in an endless loop, and of course, that word was Russia. Also in January 2017, I guess a bad month for TV gremlins, MSNBC's show Hardball experienced a freaky moment. Journalist Dave Ignatius was talking to host Chris Matthews about, ironically, Russian interference in US politics. He said the word Russia and bang. The screen flickered and started repeating Russia, Russia, Russia over and over in a feedback loop. Chris Matthews looked confused as the glitch kept going for several seconds, echoing Russia in a creepy cadence until the control room cut to commercial. Given the climate at the time, Twitter exploded with jokes that Moscow hackers or the Kremlin Matrix had struck again, but most likely this was just a bizarre technical malfunction. Perhaps a failing satellite feed or encoding error that caused a few seconds of audio/video to loop. The fact it looped that particular word on that particular topic, well, that was gold for conspiracy lovers and also late night comedians. MSNBC assured it wasn't intentional and nothing nefarious was found. If we do live in a simulation, it definitely has a flair for dramatic irony.